So, just putting together a few bits for some kind of wrist strength and wrist exercise. I know our ladies that lift have been going through front squat positions, puts our kind of wrists at risk. And I know Olympic weightlifting, obviously we've got a lot of wrist injuries. I know both myself and Coach Pip have had a few wrist niggles and things like that. So I just thought I'd spend maybe 5 minutes just showing you through some of the wrist mobility exercises that I know I like to use, and kind of using warm-ups, using cool-downs. You may want to, as we go through this one, just pause it and then continue as we kind of go through the movement. But obviously, first things we need to do is make sure we warm up. So once we get nice and warm, we'll be able to go through those patterns of movement. But we've got to make sure that we look at what the wrist does from an anatomy perspective. So we have flexion and extension of the wrist, as well as that rotation and the full range of movement that those wrists have. We want to be able to get into those positions, certainly to receive pain-free and to hold things pain-free. Whilst we want to look at this to benefit sport, obviously we look at cohorts within Crazy Strength that also have those benefits of quality of life and just carrying, lifting, shifting, pulling, pushing and things like that. So we want to start off, we'll get our wrists nice and warm. So just start to get them a little bit toasty. We can kind of move them in different positions. And then those that have done any sessions with me, we know that I like to go through these round positions. So if you start off by taking your hands, fingers facing towards you. So you're going to start with your shoulders loaded over the top of those wrists. And we're just going to slowly come back into that position. And we can go into a bit of a figure of 8, so figure of 8 round, figure of 8 through, and we can just start getting some wrist mobility in there. We can slowly start alternating each side, try and keep those wrists and those elbows as long as possible. And then we look at the rotation aspect, so we can try and rotate those wrists, little fingers turned in as much as possible, and then slowly walk our hands round, fully extended, all the way round, internally rotated at the shoulder as much as possible, and then rotate them through. We'll want to repeat that 5 to 7, maybe up to 10 times, and rotate through. We can then sit into those positions, start to work on that position. We then want to go knuckles down. From that knuckles down position, we're going to slowly alternate those wrists to the floor. Just start to get a little bit more mobile. Again, we want to keep those elbows nice and long. So the more we bend those elbows, the less pressure we get on that wrist. So we'll alternate those positions. So when we look at the musculature in and involved with kind of flexion, extension, and that rotation, it's predominantly looking at the forearm, but it also impinges on both joints that are higher on that elbow. So biceps and triceps are going to be involved. You'll also get impingement from shoulders, which is going to affect, certainly when you get into a front safety position. We want to make, stolen this off the BJJ boys, if you want to have a hard surface, it's not hard enough, but it's relatively hard enough for me to show. So we can take the front of that forearm, we can work that position, work those soft positions and start to get some trigger point work in, turn that palm over, start to work that position, get a little bit more in. Again, we can do that, completely folded that one. We can do that on the floor, roll through. Again, we can do exactly the same things that we've looked to try and do when we've warmed up. So in that position, we can then flex and extend. We can do that on a box. We can start to get some trigger point work through it. We can do exactly the same with a roller. So we can roll on the back, we can roll on forward. We can start to get some trigger point work through those positions. Once we've done that, we can then stretch off those areas. So we look at sitting into that fingers forward position. We'll sit back into that position. We can alternate working through. We can just sit back into that position. Same again for knuckles down. From knuckles down, we can start looking at how tight the extensors of the fingers and the back of the palm and the metacarpals and carpals are. So we can look at bringing those grip straight in. Again, you see my elbow wanted to bend and shorten that situation. So we can squeeze those wrists, squeeze those fingers, start getting those extensors nicely relaxed off as well. So we can alternate through. We can work that position. And then we can just ease them off as we go.